Hello everyone, I'm Sahid and thank you for clicking this video. If this is your first time viewing my channel, welcome. I'm very happy to be doing this once again. Thanks for joining me on this avid reading journey. And if you've watched or haven't watched any of my videos, to give a little brief background on myself, I'm currently a student at a community college and I'm a part of a reading club that's currently reading Canadian literature. And we've been reading this book called Moon of the Crusted Snow by waubgeshig. It's been very enjoyable for me because it's helping me improve on my avid reading, trying to just implement reading into my daily routine. And honestly, if I'm being honest, for this past few days, I've been like sort of slacking, even with my videos on here. So I deeply apologize, but I'm gonna give you guys my reasons for sort of slacking. So normally I try to record a video sort of daily, just to make sure that I'm implementing reading into my routine, or even reading daily. I try to read daily, even when I'm not recording. But recently, so I read chapter 4 and in my house I think last Tuesday. And unfortunately, when I was done reading, I looked at the video. It was just completely blurry. Like I was in it, but it was just completely blurry, and I was really sad. And so I sort of just this is not good, guys. Don't give up so easily. But I just sort of like I wanted to record more, but that day I was so exhausted. So part of me was just like, I'm done with this, and I'm gonna take a break because I felt so betrayed by my phone because, I had this really interesting conversation about what I read, and I felt so sad when I looked back at the video and I wasn't even you couldn't see me clearly, and I was just so sad. But moving on. And other days, I was just really busy and with academic stuff, school stuff, that I just didn't make time, which is not good because the goal is to be able to implement this routine, which is reading, into my other academic and other things that I do in my life. So it's not good, and so I'm gonna learn from this, guys. Um, I'm gonna learn from this, and I'm going to improve. But anyways, I think it's important that I sort of do a little overview of chapter 1, 2, and 3. So far, we're currently reading about this indigenous community within the northern part of Canada, known as the Anishinaabe community. We've met a few characters. One, character I always sort of go back to is Even White Sky. He is a father of two. He is married to his partner Nicole McLeod. He's a very, I would say, hardworking man. He believes that hunting, or not even believes, well, he does believe because it's part of his tradition. He believes that hunting, fishing, and giving back is the way of living on the Anishinaabe um, land, and it's their custom, it's their tradition, and so he is very passionate, and from a very young age he learned how to hunt from his father, and now it's something he does to even provide for his family, to be like his father, like what his father taught him. He does it in his family. But yeah, that's one thing I always highlight on. And then now, apart from the character, it's important to highlight the setting. The setting right now is that they're currently around winter. It's quite cold. It's snowing. But one thing that sort of is unfortunate is that they don't have electricity. They don't have access to high internet. They don't have, the kids are not able to watch TV. And all these things are sort of impacting their life because they have to make all these sort of sudden changes after, adapting to being able to use electricity, all these things. They have to adapt to it now because they no longer have it due to like a power outage in their community. Obviously, this is a small community, so things are passing. Everybody's sort of aware of what's going on, and people are talking. People are saying things. People are like worried. It, there's a moment in which Ethan goes to his parents' house. His parents are, his father's name is Don, and his mother's Patricia, and he sort of goes to the house, and his mother's very upset, and she's like, "This goddamn, sorry, and this goddamn mouse is not working," and she's like, "Ethan, come help me," or something. And so that's a moment that we see that this sort of sudden change and this power outage is really affecting um, their community, and we see this through his mother, and just even his life. His parents are, sorry, his kids are suddenly talking to one another in the mornings before they get ready to school, because now they don't have TVs, which is something they would always watch in the morning. And so now they have to sort of talk to one another and find a way to entertain themselves in a time in which they don't have that sort of easy access to entertainment like their TV. And so these are things I think is important to mention. And yeah. And so I think now I could sort of get into chapter 4, and hopefully I will read more chapters since I've not read in a while, and so I'm probably gonna do 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't know, but let me start with 4. And yeah, I'm excited. Thank you for joining me. And yes, chapter 4. Nicole opened her eyes to see daylight punching through the narrow gap in the thick blue curtains. It created a rectangular halo in an otherwise dark and cold bedroom. The frigid air made her nose numb. Suddenly she was wide awake, well rested, but uneasy. She looked over to the alarm clock and noticed that its red glow was gone. Even was still asleep beside her. She cast aside the covers and stood up, putting on her thick robe over her t-shirt and pajama pants. It was Friday, and she was certain Mygon would be late for school. She stepped into her deerskin moccasins by the door. The soft rabbit fur of the lining caressed the tender skin between her toes, putting her momentarily at ease. The chill was harsher out in the hallway. She peeked quickly into the kids' room and saw that both were still sleeping, curled in their thick blankets decorated with their favorite cartoon characters. Maybe it's earlier than I thought. The battery powered clock on the far wall of the kitchen indicated it was just after 7:30 a.m. Not too late for school, but barely early enough to get everyone up and ready for the day. The cold upstairs meant the wood stove in the basement was out, and with the electricity now off, the baseboard heaters hadn't kicked in to compensate for the dead fire. Sometimes they would forget to feed the fire before bed, knowing that if it died down, the electric heat would kick in. But power outages happened regularly, enough to remind them to stay on top of it. "Jesus, it's freezing in here," she heard Evan say behind her. He walked out into the bright kitchen, wearing a black track suit and thick wool socks. "Yeah, power's out," Nicole replied. "Really?" Noticing the surprised uptick in his voice, she tried to reassure both of them. "Yeah, we just forgot to put more wood in the stove," she said. "Remember when this happened last winter?" His shoulders relaxed slightly. "Oh, yeah, yeah," he said. "Guess I better go down and start that up again." He scratched his head. "Hopefully the power comes back on soon, or it's just gonna be cereal and cold bread for breakfast." Like most of the sorry, like most of the homes that had been built or brought in prefabricated in the last decade, theirs relied heavily on electric appliances. When Evan was a child, His home's stove and fridge had been fueled by propane, handy in case the diesel delivery didn't come through. With a light demand and smaller storage tanks, propane didn't have to be trucked in as regularly. But the hydro lines from the massive dam to the east now powered homes here. There were plans to decommission the band's diesel generators and sell them. There was still diesel in them for contingencies, but the upcoming winter was to be the last that the band paid for trucks to bring in the fuel. The narrow basement windows gave even just enough light to start another fire in the big metal box on the far side of the cold, damp room. Upstairs, Nicole roused the children to get their day started. If the power didn't come back on within the next hour, school would likely be cancelled. She began thinking of activities to keep them occupied if that was the case. As she watched the kids saunter into the kitchen, Nicole caught sight of the phone on the wall. Out of curiosity, she picked the handset of its holster and brought it to her ear. The cold plastic chilled her earlobe. She heard nothing. She had a moment of quick panic but stifled it to focus on feeding the children. They were sitting at the table eating peanut butter and strawberry jam sandwiches when Evan came back upstairs 20 minutes later. The air inside slowly warmed, and the now familiar silence made for a quiet, comfortable space in the home. Nicole decided to wait until after breakfast to tell Evan about the dead phone. There was a knock on the front door, and when Evan stood up from the table to look, he could see Nicole's older cousin, Tammy, standing on the porch. She smiled and waved, then opened the door and walked in. She was wearing a heavy burgundy coat that made crinkling sounds as she closed the door behind her. "Hannin," she called out. Her black hair was tied back in a tight bun that seemed to pull her smile even wider. "Hannin," Evan replied. "Anishna, what's up?" "Oh, just making the rounds," she said. Her voice was always louder than anyone else in Nicole's family. It came in handy as a school's receptionist. "I see the power's out over here, too." "Yeah, must have gone out in the night sometime. We slept in. I think everyone did." "We let the furnace go out, too. I got it back going. I guess we're getting used to hydro. I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure I can still see my breath in here." She exhaled slowly through her mouth and tugged at the collar of her jacket. "Anyway, I came by to let yous know there's no school today. Phones and internet aren't working, and we were too lazy to get the good old-fashioned smoke signals going today." She followed that with big laughter. Even shot a puzzled glance at Nicole, who was still in the kitchen. "Landlines aren't working either." She grimaced and shook her head. He looked to the floor and pushed that worry out of his mind before turning his attention back to Tammy. "If you're the Moccasin Telegraph, where's your moccasins then?" Even looked out down at the high brown leather boots she'd brought at a mall on a trip to Gibson. "Must have been a handsome moose you shot," he laughed, and Tammy scoffed. "Anyways," she said, "hopefully we'll get the power back on this weekend and have school on Monday. I'll let you know." Even nodded. "It's kind of weird to have everything out. When's the last time we had no satellite, phones, or hydro?" "I don't know. Couldn't have been that long ago. Last year, maybe? Even said even. You sure? I don't remember. If not last year, then definitely the year before. Remember how nothing really worked all the time when they first put up that tower and started bringing in those lines? Yeah, I guess so, eh? Don't worry about it. Geez, back in our day, we never had none of this shit. Tammy was 15 years older than Even and Nicole. You guys should count your lucky stars. It was true. He had spent most of his life without cell service and satellite TV, and his parents had grown up without power at all. You're right, he muttered. Thanks for coming by and letting us know. Nicole walked over to the door with Nagons trailing behind her, and Tammy's face lit up as the little girl ran into her arms. Oh, good morning, my little star. She bounced the smiling girl in her arms. Well, guess I should get going. Yous wanna come over for some poker tomorrow night? We'll be around. Hopefully the lights will be back on. Okay, cool. Miigwech, said Nicole. Alright then, you know where to find us. Tammy put Nagon down and left. Even felt the cold air sneak inside as the door closed. Soon, the temperature outside would drop further, and the first big snowfall loomed. It was a good time to split more wood for the furnace. Outside, the air was dry and cold. A breeze bit his high, broad cheeks. The clear sky seemed unthreatening, but there would be a storm soon. There always was. That's when his job would really get busy, clearing snow from roads and driveways with the band snow plows. Evan's job responsibilities changed season to season. Springtime usually meant he was out on the roads, patching holes and laying gravel on a asphalt that had washed away in the runoff. In the summer, he monitored the water quality at the treatment plant. By fall, he made home visits to make sure pipes, cisterns, and septic tanks were ready for winter. And when the snow fell, he was one of the plug men. In the backyard stood 5 firm walls of wood piled neatly into 10 cords waiting to be split. Gathering wood was a year-round process. On the rest, people went into the bush to cut down spruce, oak, and maple to bring home for their own use or to sell. The band employed its own crew to provide wood for elderly and the others who needed help, and even brought any leftover wood home whenever he could. He worked a few logs free from the top of the nearest stack and shoved them to the ground. He tipped the closest one upright and brought the axe up to his waist to begin his swing. His left hand closest to the butt of the handle and his right by the blade. He raised it high over his head and brought his hands together as he dropped the axe down, splitting the log with a loud crack that echoed into the field behind his home. Whoa, good swing, Pipes. Even recognized his younger brother's voice behind him. He looked over his shoulder to see a wide grin bearing stained yellow teeth. Cam's ball cap was pulled tightly over his forehead, concealing his eyes and causing his thick, greasy black hair to protrude in all directions. Oh, good, just in time to help, Even replied. Yeah, maybe if you give me a smoke, said Cam. We'll see. So what are you up to? Nothing, man. fucking bored. Can't do nothing without no power. Cam didn't have a job. He worked occasionally when the trees had to be cleared for the power lines or when a road crew was needed. But otherwise, he filled his time playing video games at the apartment he shared his girlfriend Sydney and their son Jordan. They lived in a cluster of duplex buildings originally built for hydro workers, but after the men from the south left, the housing was made available to band members. It was temporary housing for the southerners, but like so much of the res, it stayed up and got used. Good. About time you got up off your ass, even poked. Fuck off. When's the power supposed to come back? Come back on? He asked. No idea. We froze our asses off last night because I let the furnace go out. That's why I'm chopping more wood now, just in case. Yeah, it was pretty chilly in our place too. Good thing Easy and those guys came around early this morning to start ours. Do you guys have enough wood to keep it going? Even asked. Yeah, I think so. They left some more. They left some more for us. You should know how to start that yourself, anyways. Meh, whatever. Only 2 years separated the brothers, but somehow Ethan had landed on his feet in adulthood, while Cam hadn't yet. When Ethan had been out on the land learning real survival skills with his father and uncles as a teenager, Cam had chosen to stay behind, learning simulated ones in video games. Well, be a good uncle for your niece and nephew anyway, and go grab that axe by that pile. Cam grumpily obliged, and two split logs as the sun moved across the sky. Somewhere out on the road, a pack of dogs yelped and barked at something in the bush. They knew the storm was coming soon, too. That is the end of chapter 4. Okay. Let's sort of talk about it. I'm going to just put my bookmark and close the book because I try to think. Okay, so this chapter sort of started with Nicole waking up, sort of late, around 7:30. She had to wake the kids up. They wake up. It's really cold. By the way, if I look down, I'm not looking at the book. The book is closed, but it doesn't even matter. But I look down because I'm thinking. So they sort of wake up. She's trying to wake the kids up. It's sort of cold when even wake up. Even it's like, oh my goodness, it's freezing in here. And Nicole sort of mentions about how they forgot to in the basement. They forgot to light the furnace or have the woods on fire so that it could sort of heat up the house. And so unfortunately, they wake up feeling really cold, and they remember they have to sort of get some woods and light up the furnace. And after that, Nicole's older cousin Tammy comes over to sort of announce to the family that there's no school because obviously there's still no electricity. The satellite is not working. There's no internet. The kids aren't really able to do anything with the technology because these things are not available. And so Tammy comes over and we get to meet her. She's kind of like this loud energetic person. She's funny. Her and Even have a little moment, and she has a very interesting character. And so later Tammy leaves, and then we also have this moment in which we get a brief discussion about sort of what Even does during different seasons and how he helps the community. And then we're always also aware of His older, sorry, is it his older or younger brother, Cam? Let me just clarify. Sorry, I think it's his older um, brother, or I might be wrong, but let's look back. Okay, yeah, sorry, I'm actually wrong. It's his younger brother, Cam. We get introduced to Cam, who is like 2 years younger than Even, and Cam has a girlfriend named Sydney and a son named Jordan. And Cam is just sort of this. Honestly, I think he's lazy. He's sort of this guy who, when Even was learning real skills, he's over there, playing video games, and he doesn't have a job. He's kind of this idle person, and so even as much like hardworking, he learned a lot when he was a teenager, and so he used that in his life. But unfortunately, Cam didn't learn the skills that Even has, and now he's unfortunately just unemployed, broke. let me not, let me not. But this really this unemployed person, and unfortunately that's affecting his life. And then now that there's no power, the things that he actually enjoys doing, like video games, he's not going to be able to do those things. And now he actually has to do some real work. He has to get up and leave his damn house to do some actual things. So he doesn't lose his damn mind in the house. We have this moment he's fucking bored because he has no electricity, and so that's so funny, and it's quite interesting because, again, back to the whole setting, not having electricity, phone, not being able to use your phones, no satellites, not even access to internet. It's sort of forcing them to have to make certain sudden changes, and it's unfortunate because it's also cold, and certain things just it's not available to them anymore. And so as I read, I'm always thinking about this setting, and it's so unfortunate that they're having to deal with this period. But it's, it sort of builds the plot as I continue to read, and we are sort of introduced to different characters and their attitudes about what's happening. And so, yeah, that's kind of a summary of chapter 4. I hope you join me on chapter 5 and the upcoming chapters as I continue to read. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please subscribe, like, and comment if you truly enjoy just hearing me read. It means a lot. So thank you, and have a wonderful one. Bye.